If you've ever built a Python AI agent, you definitely know that sinking feeling, right? Your pipeline just completely crashes because the language model decided to hallucinate a field name, or maybe it returned a string when you desperately, absolutely needed a number. Well, in today's explainer, we're diving into a framework that actually fixes this fundamentally. We're talking about Pydantic AI V2. It just hit its stable release this June, and we're going to see exactly how it guarantees perfectly structured data from your Python AI agents. It's essentially the end of fragile prompt engineering. So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the LLM output problem, then we'll introduce Pydantic AI, walk through building a real-world triage agent, check out those new V2 superpowers, and finally wrap up with the type safety guarantee. All right, let's jump right into that first point, the LLM output problem, and specifically, the fragility we see in production. We really have to start with this universal, incredibly frustrating problem that pretty much all agent builders run into. You ask a large language model for a structured output, and you basically find yourself at the total mercy of its unpredictable nature. Like, we expect clean data, right? Maybe just a simple priority integer between 1 and 5. But the messy reality is that the model might just drop a crucial field entirely, or invent a category out of thin air, or, my personal favorite, decide to wrap the entire JSON payload in markdown fences that completely choke your downstream parsers. So, how do teams usually handle this mess? Well, they resort to the old way of patching outputs. You know the drill, writing insanely complex regex to strip out those markdown fences. And let's be honest, that is a nightmare in itself. It usually leads to someone tearing their hair out over regex at 3 p.m. on a Friday. We build endless, clunky retry loops. Or we write increasingly elaborate, almost begging prompt instructions, just hoping the model actually listens. These are just fragile band-aids. Ultimately, this whole approach amounts to asking the model really nicely and crossing your fingers. And that brings us to a really harsh truth. Most of the time, simply isn't good enough in production. When you ask an LLM for structured data, like a customer support ticket, yeah, it might actually work most of the time. But in a live environment, an agent that works 95% of the time means 5% of your pipeline is actively breaking downstream code and causing system crashes. No way you can scale that. So we need a better way. Enter Pydantic AI and the concept of framework-level type safety. It is definitely time to transition away from the pain of unstructured data and look at a genuine paradigm-shifting solution. Pydantic AI completely flips the script here. Instead of asking the model nicely, this framework strictly constrains LLM outputs to expected Pydantic models. It leverages the exact same data validation library that millions of Python developers already use and love in frameworks like FastAPI. You literally use it to force the output shape. And if the output doesn't match, Pydantic AI automatically self-corrects those validation errors. Here's how this backend magic actually plays out in practice. Say the LLM outputs malformed data. Pydantic immediately catches that schema error because it's actively validating against your predefined model. But here's the kicker. Rather than crashing your app and triggering a 2 a.m. PagerDuty alert, that specific validation error is fed directly back to the LLM. The LLM then uses that precise error context to autocorrect its output. It elegantly forces the model to fix itself, and remarkably, this almost always happens within a single retry. Okay, let's take a look at building a triage agent as a real-world example to see this in action. Let's bring this abstract concept down to earth for a second. Imagine you're building an agent that triages incoming support emails, and you're using a Pydantic model called Ticket Decision. This schema forces the exact shape of the output before your code ever even sees it. You can restrict the category field to a specific enum, like it has to be billing, technical, or account. You force the priority to be an integer strictly from 1 to 5, and summary, well, that's just a string. You pass this exact model as the agent's result type. When it runs on an email, Pydantic AI uses the model's native structured output or tool calling capabilities to enforce this exact shape. So here is the absolute crucial point for us developers. Downstream code never has to defensively check, is this actually a number? Ever again. Seriously. If the model tries to return the word hi instead of the number 5, Pydantic AI intercepts it, sends the error back, and gets you the integer. This is a massive relief. Because the framework guarantees the type, you can confidently rip out all of that defensive boilerplate parsing code you've been writing. It just works, or it raises a clear, standard exception that you can easily handle. Now, type safety is awesome, but let's talk about the Pydantic AI V2 superpowers that came with June's stable release. These specific framework upgrades really take things to the next level. First up is declarative YAML. You can now define your agents declaratively. What does that mean for you? It means you can version control your agent configurations entirely separately from your main Python codebase. Think about it. Want to seamlessly swap underlying language models? Need to adjust your retry limits? Want to tweak the system prompts? You can do all of that directly in the YAML spec without ever having to touch or redeploy the underlying Python code. It's a huge time saver. Next, V2 introduces composable capability bundles. This allows you to package tools, model configurations, and system prompts into a single modular reusable unit. Think about how powerful this is. You can seamlessly stack agents together. You could take that email triage agent we just designed and bundle it right alongside a second agent that drafts the reply, and even a third agent dedicated just to human escalation for those super urgent tickets. It makes your architecture incredibly modular. And then we have durable execution. This means your long-running agents can actually survive crashes and pick up exactly where they left off. Imagine your pipeline is chugging along, processing a batch of 1,000 support emails, and boom, the process gets killed halfway through. Instead of having to start completely over and reprocess everything, or worse, losing track of where you were entirely, durable execution ensures the system resumes from the very last completed step. It is an absolute game changer for reliability. Which brings us to our final big topic, the type safety guarantee and how it prevents production nightmares. Let's bring all these features together to really understand why they fundamentally change how we run AI agents in high-stakes production environments. There's a quote from our source material that perfectly summarizes this paradigm shift, moving validation logic from "hope the prompt worked" to "the type system won't let this fail silently." I love that. Type safety isn't just some nice-to-have feature. When your AI agents are making decisions that touch real critical systems like billing, account access, or automated escalations, a silently malformed field is literally a nightmare. It's the exact kind of bug that hides during testing, only to blow up production in the middle of the night. Pydantic AI V2 prevents that silent failure entirely. Before we fully wrap up, just a quick reminder that this explainer is part of our ongoing series dedicated to exploring applied AI agent frameworks. We've already covered LangGraph, Crew AI, and the React pattern, and today we've added Pydantic AI V2 to the list. We're going to keep working through the agent framework tools that are actually worth your time, so definitely stay tuned for more deep dives. Which leaves us with one final thought today. Take a hard look at your current infrastructure and ask yourself, are your AI agents silently failing at 2 a.m.? Because if you're tired of writing defensive parsing code and crossing your fingers every single time an agent runs, it might be time to stop hoping the prompt worked and start actually relying on the type system. Pydantic AI V2 is for sure worth trying out this week. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep building robust systems.